So if you don't Twitter and Facebook or whatever, maybe after this you'll think about it.
Hey everybody, how are you? Hope you're enjoying your time here with TST. I'm very proud of the fact that Motor Age was able to help sponsor this event. I've known G by reputation for a long time, but I've only known him for the past few years, about the time I took over it with Motor Age. So I just want to say at this point, I'd like to show a little appreciation so far for all the work that G and TST, the TST board members have done. So how about a little applause for their event? I spent most of my working career as a tech. I've got 35 years under the hood before I had the opportunity to join Motor Age. I want to tell you a little bit about how we got to where we are together and how I had a chance to meet G. Let me start off by sharing with you that I attended college right after high school. I started working in a shop when I was 15. That was back in the days when you had a full-service gas station. And that was where the local guys got their cars fixed. You know, usually 2 bays maybe, and you know, full-service pumps. And I did my first oil change professionally when I was 15, and I kind of enjoyed that. But at the time, I was like moving on to school, and I got started with school. And after about a year of college, I found out that wasn't quite the fit for me. The motorcycle I was riding, though, was. So I went to my folks and said, you know, college is not for me. I really want to be a mechanic, and I wanted, at that time, wanted to be a motorcycle mechanic. And I went to school at the only one available at the time. It was called AMI, and it was located in Daytona Beach, Florida, right outside Turn 3 of the Speedway. That was kind of a pretty cool place to go to school. I was there at a very fortunate time. It was a 4-month course. I was there for the Daytona Bike Week, of course, the 500. And spring break, and I was single. Yeah, it was a rough life. Yeah, I lived about 2 blocks off the beach, so pretty cool time there. I came back after the 4-month class and went to work for a local dealer. And that's about the time when the technology on bikes was kind of ahead of cars. We were already dealing with fuel injection and computerized systems. Speed was everything. There were bikes fresh out of the box that would do 130, 140 miles an hour. That's when, before the official crotch rockets came to be, we were still building the cafe bikes then. So I got to do a lot of work, performance tuning, and inside the guts of an engine, a whole lot more so than I guess most shops were doing, you know, at the time, as per customer, if you will, per vehicle count. So I got a chance to get inside. Only problem with motorcycles in Virginia, and probably up here too, when the weather turns cold, most of them disappear. So the business was very seasonal. We spent a lot of winter times playing with remote control cars in the showroom and riding the ATVs in the snow. So I made the move over to cars. And this was back in the days when there were points ignition systems, carbureted engines, and right about the time that the electronics first came out. You guys remember that? You know, the first black boxes, first electronic ignitions. There were a lot of guys that looked under the hood then and went, wow, what am I going to do with that? Now look where we are. Can you imagine now taking a GDI car back into history and planting that in front of some folks' bays? That would really kind of blow their mind. I worked for Firestone for a while. That was the days when Firestone came out with their version of the flat rate system. Before then, we all worked commission. Of course, now flat rate's very common. That's a whole other topic we won't spend the time discussing. But that's about the time I got involved with the cars. I also remember having a trainer back then. And back then, the trainer told us that in 5 years, you would need an electronics degree to work on cars. Well, that was mid-'80s. And again, now look where we are. And I don't necessarily agree with the fact that you're going to need a college degree. I mean, I have a high school diploma. I still think I fix cars pretty well. I think most of you guys do too. But I think it does point out something very important. The need for training is ongoing and continuous. And you guys know that. You're in an event like this one. A lot of things that we've been doing with the magazine, I'll talk about here in a minute, are all geared at trying to help bridge that gap between information and the training that you need to stay in business. Now, I bounced back from cars to motorcycles, back and forth during that period in my life. We were just starting a family. My lovely wife, Chris, around taking pictures. And because of the instability of the market at the time and the economies at the time, we made the move to Florida. And I moved down to about 1986 with a job with the local bike shop. And from there, I had the opportunity to teach at the Motorcycle Mechanics Institute. Now is expanded into UTI. I'm sure many of you know that school. But it was very educational for me. It gave me a chance to see what teaching was like and what was incorporated into that. I actually ran the career program there for a while, and we actually had a pretty good Harley program. We did a lot of factory training on the motorcycle side. How many teachers are here? Anybody? A few? I got to tell you, man, I did the public education side too for a while. And my hat's off to you. What it takes to put a program together in a public school system to begin with, and even more so on the vocational side. Guys, if you're in your area and there's a public school in your area, they need you on their industry advisory council. It's not much. They'll feed you lunch, right? Ask for your opinion, what you think of the program, to help them out. If you're not involved with them, please do. We try to support public education efforts as much as we can. So I want to take a minute here too. If you're a public education vocational instructor, automotive instructor, thank you. Now the only problem with teaching, the pay wasn't that real good. So I furthered my career. I tried to look for that American dream, and I actually got out of automotive for a few years. I started doing all kinds of things. You know, I wanted the big house and the new cars and the suit and tie, and found out that just like college, the suit and tie didn't fit me real well. And I had 3 extra mouths to feed. But one of the things I learned doing that trial, and I actually took a middle management position for a while with the company. I did that for like 3 years. But I was never home. I was working 6, 7 days a week for somebody else. My kids were growing up without me. And I'll never forget, I was just turning 40. My oldest son was about 15, getting ready to drive. And I turned around and looked at myself and said, where have I been? I mean, here's my oldest son almost grown up, and I was hardly ever involved in his growing up. And I have one more coming behind him. I need to change that. So I walked in that day and I quit. Didn't have any idea what I was going to do. But I was going to move away from the path I was on. And I went back to something that I always loved doing. That was working on cars. Well, we skipped a spot, but that's okay. I was never a shop owner. I was always in the back. I didn't really have the patience to be at the front counter. People skills. But I did like the back, and I did like the challenge of working on the cars. But when I came back, even though I was only out of the business for a few years, the changes that happened in just that short a period of time was amazing to me. I mean, I came in, I didn't know what a MAP sensor was. I didn't know what a MAP sensor was. I didn't know how a lot of these electronic systems were working. So I had a big learning curve to go through. Where to get that information? Where to get that information? That was a challenge for me. Is that something that sounds familiar to you guys? Where to get the information to stay current? I mean, that's what you guys are part of TST for, because you get to find that new and current information. Well, I knew that if I didn't learn, I was going to be delegated to cleaning the bathrooms and sweeping out stalls and doing oil changes. I really didn't want to do that. I mean, that's an important job, and I did it as my part. I didn't want that to be my primary aim. So I did what I could. I found a lot of things online. IATN just started coming online not long after that. What a great resource that was. And before I knew it, I wasn't the guy asking the questions. I was the guy that people were asking questions of, which was kind of neat. And I think that came at advantage because I was one of those few that believed in continuing that education, just like you guys do, because you're here and you're learning. I tried my hand at writing about 7 years ago, and it came about by accident. I was working in a shop and dealing with the Lexus EVAP code. And I don't know if you looked at some of the service information on EVAP systems on Toyota, but sometimes it's a little weird to understand. I'll never forget, the one was in the flow chart was telling me to check continuity on something called a VSV. And the life of me, I couldn't find the first connector on the VSV. So I was just like totally blown away. What is this trying to tell me? So you know what? I took that and I got a little, probably overboard. My wife will tell you I'll tend to do that for once in a while. I went and did all the digging I could online to find all the information I could online. I went to the factory stuff, IATN, magazine features, everywhere I could find information. I pulled it all together and I wrote it up to put it in my toolbox as a little job aid. And when I got done with it, I'm going like, I wonder, would anybody interested in doing this, printing this? So I sent it off to some of the magazines. And sure enough, I got a couple of answers, which was kind of neat. Motor Age told me at the time that they didn't have any place for their editorial calendar to fit it in. And now that I'm part of the magazine, I understand that we plan stuff off like a year and ahead of time of what we're going to do. But another magazine did. But Motor Age has always held a place in my heart. I mean, I grew up with that magazine. How many of you guys get Motor Age in your shop routinely? I mean, great. And one of my favorite features is Garage. And if you like Garage like I do, I mean, it's like that's really the case study, the story from the Bay. Somebody writes us and tells us about a particularly troublesome car they might have had, what they did to fix it. It's like talking about it over a couple of beers after work. And I always like to read those to see what could I learn, or what would I take as a direction, and then compare it to what the author did. So that was one of the things that really stuck out for me. And I got the invitation to start writing some of that for Garage. And from there, I started writing some of the features. And about almost 2 years ago, I got the opportunity to join the magazine as a technical editor. And I'm very proud of that. Motor Age serves currently over 120,000 independent shops. I believe that makes us #1 in terms of how many people that we reach. That's close to 500,000 techs that we get to talk to and assist every month. We've been around the longest, since 1899. This is not, I have a picture of the 1899 cover, not quite as good. I like this one though. A lot of us can relate to that. Working late in the shop. And then of course our newest issue up on the top right. When I started writing the features for the magazine and becoming involved in the technical aspect, at first it was fun. But then I had a realization. 500,000 people, 500,000 are reading what we write, depending on what we send them being as accurate and up-to-date as we can make it. When it says something on our cover that I really take to heart, advancing the automotive service professional. That's really what we're all about. That's really what we're trying to do with the publication. We take that tagline to heart. When I was working in a shop with other techs, we had 50, 60 guys working in our shop. We ran 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I just want to run the math here for you. 50, 60 guys working in the shop. We had a company come in to us and said, hey, we do training in the area. We need a place to hold it. And you've got a good facility, so if you let us come to your facility and hold the training, then we'll let all your techs come for free. What a deal. And the training was only like 5 feet from the time clock in our shop. And it was held in an hour where the morning guys, right when they got off, the afternoon guys could come in a little early. So it made it as convenient as you could make it. Out of the 50, 60 guys we had in the shop, how many do you think showed up on a routine basis? 5. 5. That's really, that's about right, 4. And now you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it, okay, 4 out of 50, that's pathetic. Or you can look at it on the other side of that. That's almost 10% that want the information, that want to be better at what they do. Now let's expand that number a little bit. In the United States, most of the numbers that I see, tell me that there are 750,000 technicians in this business. So using that 10% figure, there's 75,000 that do want to be better techs, that want the information. Now, when I was a tech, sometimes it was hard to get. There either wasn't training offered in the area, or we didn't know about it because we were in the back of the shop and the guy never came to the back of the shop to tell us. Sometimes it's a matter of cost. I mean, when I was a tech, that's not always the easiest way to make a living. And I'm sure my wife and I would have some certain discussions about paying, a couple $100 for this, or paying the mortgage, or what came first. So there can be a lot of different reasons. Now, what about you guys? Let me ask, how many of you guys live within, say, 2 hours of this location? 4? How about further than 4? One guy? Anybody from Montana? Okay. That's taken the long way to tell you how we came to be involved with TST. Because there are guys in Montana and Colorado, even where I'm at, in Florida, that can't get to, can't afford, can't take the time away, whatever, but want the information. And back in last February, we partnered to do our first live webcast with TST. How many of you guys saw the one in voltage drop last February? We are able to offer these at no charge to those who want to come because we have sponsors that take care of the costs. Our first webcast had 800 people register. 800 people came. I think we had a total live attendance, Jay, of what, about 500 or 600 on that first one back in February a year ago. So we had a great response to the live one. But not only is the power of the live event critical, so is the power of the ones that are recorded and that are archived, that all of you can go to right now. So far, Jay and I have partnered to do 5. I think we have 3 more this year to do. Just in our webcasts. The voltage drop webcast by itself had about 500 or 600 active viewers. Since that time, 15,000 people have watched it on the internet. All total, viewership for just our webcasts has exceeded 30,000. That's a real proud goal. Again, thanks to the guys at TST for helping us make that happen.